And welcome. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Hello and welcome. My name is Aisha Harley, and I am one of the founders of the Visionary Leaders Collective. And it is always such a pleasure to welcome you to our podcast. Thank you all for joining us live. So the first half of the call, we focus on an array of wellness topics and solutions using essential oils and other medicinal plants. In the second portion of this call, we focus on how to successfully earn additional income simply by sharing doTERRA with your friends, your family, and your community. If you would like to learn more about us, please visit www.hellovisionary.life. Please also follow us on Instagram and on YouTube. In addition, we would be so grateful if you would take the time to give us a 5-star rating on this podcast. We have incredible topics each week. Would you all agree? Raise your hand. And so be sure to tune in weekly and share this with your friends. This month, we are discussing the mind-body-spirit connection and sharing ways to reset and support oneself as we move forward into this new year. Today, Arin, Josie, Ariana, and myself will be sharing our personal tips on how we have personally supported and nurtured our spirit during these challenging times and how we are personally resetting for 2023. We also love hearing from all of you. So please chime in on the chat because we love to hear your tips as we move through the call. Before I hand the call over to Arin, I do want to just take a moment and grab your oil. Cinnamon, as Ariana mentioned, this is the oil of sexual harmony. It is related to our second chakra, which is kind of right at below the belly button. So if you're comfortable, first take a smell of the oil, put a couple drops on your hands, and I want you to tune in for a moment. And I just want you to do a quick evaluation of where you are right now. Are you present mentally? If you're running around the house multitasking, no worries, but I just ask you to take this moment and just become present in this moment right here with us, with our whole community. We're all connecting from around the globe, okay? And just take an evaluation of where you are. No judgment, just notice, is your mind scattered? Are you stressed? Have you had a busy morning? Whatever it is, just take note of where you are. Okay, if you haven't already, put your oil in the palm of your hand, and I just want you to rub your palms together. Just rub them gently, and then take a moment and bring your hands up to your face. Maybe not too close because it is cinnamon. Close your eyes and just take 3 long, deep belly breaths. We'll do that all together. Just take a nice, long, deep inhale. And when you inhale, just hold the breath for just a moment and then exhale. And again, inhale. And exhale. And one more long, deep inhale. And then hold the breath for a count of 3. And exhale. And now take your hands and rest them below your belly. So you're going to connect with that second chakra, which again is the energy center of creativity, of sexuality, of flow. Just breathe into the belly. Cinnamon encourages the soul to let go of control, and it allows others and ourselves to be free. Just continue to breathe into that space. And now bring your hands to your heart. And again, just take a notice of how you're feeling. Again, just an observation. There's no judgment. And I just want you to notice if anything has shifted, anything at all, even if it's just ever so slightly. And I want to leave all of you with this. We're living in this kind of crazy, hectic state all the time. And one of the best ways to connect with your spirit or the voice of your heart is to slow the breath down. When you slow the breath down, it immediately begins to release the mind. And as you quiet the mind, you can tune in to your own inner truth. So if you're looking for answers, if you're looking for guidance, if you're feeling confused, if you're struggling in your life, if you take time to practice, and again, slow the breath down, even if it takes, more than just 3 breaths, but you just spend some time consciously breathing, I promise you, eventually the mind will begin to settle, and then you can listen to the truth of your heart. So go ahead and open your eyes again. Thank you all so much for being present with me this morning. And Arin, I'm going to pass the call on over to you.
Thanks, Aisha. I love that we're meditating with oils every week now. Do you all like this little oil meditation as we start the call? It feels so good. So this month in January, we have been focusing on this idea of resetting our mind, our body, our spirit, and our business. And we've had some great calls so far. And this week, we're talking about the reset of our spirit. So has anyone else felt like the last 3 years have just taken you for a tumble? That's what I feel. And what's interesting is we are celebrating the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year. And on, I think it was Saturday, I got an alert on my phone that it was the 3-year anniversary of the first, COVID case in America. And for some reason, and it's also the new moon. Yesterday was the new moon. For some reason, this weekend has felt like a closing of a cycle, in my opinion. And what's happened for me in my life is I've always struggled with anxiety. I had a traumatic upbringing, and that has really turned into anxiety for me. I've managed my anxiety. It's one of the reasons I got into doTERRA. They found essential oils and that centering they do to be so helpful. But over this last few years, I noticed that my anxiety was almost a 9 out of 10. And it has not been that way in almost 14 years. And I felt very frustrated because, of course, I'm taking my oils, I'm using my tools, I'm doing all my things. Why am I feeling so much anxiety? And it creeps into what's wrong with me. Do my oils not work? Does my healthy lifestyle not work? Am I being bad? Am I doing bad things? And I'm just racking my head, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm so healthy. I do all the things. I'm in therapy. I'm taking the supplements. I'm doing all the things. And I finally realized what it was. And I'm just curious if anyone else relates to this. The last 3 years have been like a pressure cooker. So not only have I had the regular pressures of life, mom, wife, business owner, friend, I have 5 acres, so landowner, all those normal pressures of life, but the added pressure of the pandemic, you can't see the people you love, scared of getting sick, people getting more sick, the separation with politics and whether or not you're going to get vaccinated, the pressures on our incomes, all of that just became too much for me. So what I have been doing and what my meditation has been is, how can I do less? What are things that I don't need to do? How can I let go of perfection? And how can I transfer my worth from being a producer to just being worthy because of the fact that I'm alive? My favorite oil through all of this has been frankincense. Frankincense on the back of my neck feels so good. And up until now, guess what? I have not liked the smell of Adaptive. I'm one of those people who've been like, I don't like it. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like the smell. I know it's good for me, so I put it in the diffuser. Now I can't get enough of it. The smell is like intoxicating to me. I absolutely love it. So that's my little check-in about my spirit and where I am and what I've done. And I just want to say before I pass the mic to Ariana that you all have been such a help. Coming to this call every week over the last 3 years and this consistent support in this community and the reminders of what oils to use and what products to try have been such a help. And I'm really grateful for you all. So thank you for being my community. And pass it to you, Ariana.
Thank you, Arin. What I have to say really piggybacks really nicely with what Arin just shared. So one thing that I think that I could recommend is that all of us have, we have to check in with our nervous systems. We don't have to, but it's a great thing to do. Anybody who's experienced trauma, which is very few people who haven't in this day and age, can have elevated nervous systems just from a life of stress. And I think globally, we're seeing that, as Arin was mentioning, with all of the pressures that have happened to us in the past 3 years. And so something that's really helped me is that I have a lot of intellectual knowledge, but there's a difference between practicing and knowledge, right? Like you can read about basketball or you can play basketball, and they're two very different things. And so I just wanted to share briefly what I've been doing, and I have to continue to check in and do it over and over again. If my nervous system gets triggered or offset in any way, maybe it was the holidays and I just got busy, maybe it's a traumatic event, whatever, what have you, what I have learned is to come back into center and just check my daily routine. And when I talk to my daughter about it, she rolls her eyes and she's like, Mom, I know, drink the water, blah, 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 right? But we have to actually be doing these things. It doesn't help us if we just know about them. So very briefly, I just wanted to share a few things I do daily. And when I'm off track and off center, my first question to myself is, go through your little checklist. Are you doing those things? Most of the time, I am not. And so I think our morning is incredibly important, the way that we set our tone for the day. And so one thing that I check in is, one, doing a spiritual practice in the morning, whatever that is for you. It can be as simple as just that breath with the oil that we just did. That's a phenomenal way to work on our nervous system. Something I've been bringing back in that's really helpful is, before I even get out of bed, I love to start my day with rosemary because it wakes you up. It's really good for the brain. And I just put it in my hands. You could do whatever favorite oil you have. And I do those 3 deep breaths. And on each breath, I just think of something I'm grateful for. And so the days that I do that, and I forget, but the days that I do that and the days I don't, already start off really differently. I notice that if you notice you wake up and you're already in a frenzy and you're running around and you're getting all this stuff done and you're all stressed out, just to set your intention, to be intentional throughout the day, right? The one thing we can change is our perspective, right? And that's going to change our life. And then the other things that have profoundly changed my nervous system is taking the advantage, MetaPower Advantage in the morning. You can do it in the night or in the morning, but it really has helped with my nervous system reset. And of course, drinking a lot of water. I know we all hear that, but it's so easy to forget. and vitamins and getting the proper nutrients. Because if we are trying to operate in this world from a balanced place and our whole body system is taxed, we are going to it's like carrying a whole bunch of weight up a hill, right? It's going to be so much harder. So I always check in. Have I taken my vitamins? Have I done my spiritual practice? Am I drinking enough water? Am I breathing and smelling my oils throughout the day aromatically? And then the last thing that I just wanted to share is what I call a 5 to 5 to 5 practice. And so if your nervous system is really off the charts, say you heard a news program and like I woke up and looked at my phone and saw a horrible news article, right? To bring yourself back out of a heightened state of anxiety, you can choose 5 things you can see, 5 things you can hear, 5 things you can smell, 5 things that you can taste if you want to bring that in. You could even shorten it if you want. I love bringing in the smell. So like bringing it out an oil and smelling it, looking around the room, I see a plant, I see a light. This simple practice will slow you down, will get you breathing, and it will calm your mind from an anxiety attack. So that is very simple. If you can't remember that, just remember 5 things on one of your senses, right? So what are 5 things I can hear? And that is just a great nervous system reset. And then we know smelling the oils, helping our limbic system. So again, we all have these tools, but just a gentle reminder that slow and steady wins the race, and our tools won't help us unless we're actually using them, right? So I always say, did I think about doing that practice or did I actually do the practice? So that is what has really helped my spirit through these times of stress. And I'm going to go ahead and let Josie or Aisha share what they also are doing.
Thanks, Ari. Hey, everyone. It's Josie here. I love all of our different perceptions and angles, and hopefully this will spawn everyone into where they are and where we are. And what I wanted to share was, I have a more than 20-year deep morning contemplation practice. And I call these spiritual exercises. And the one thing I studied as an undergrad, comparative Eastern religions and specialty in Taoism, and that truth coming through in my life of the one constant is change. And I love, and how Arin, you spoke to that these last 3 years, there's been so much change. And it's almost like a valve is what I want to talk about. When you like those Instapots and you have to like press on the valve. I think because we have all these amazing tools and we all know what to do. We know. I watched this no, it wasn't TikTok. I don't have that Instagram thing reel with this woman who was 100 and she was gorgeous. Like she was more beautiful than most of us. Like, I was like, what? And they're like, what's the secret? And she was like, just eat right, eat your vegetables, and like, don't party too much, She's like, don't do too much, and like put the cigarettes and the booze down. I mean, it was like, she didn't even talk about exercise. She's like, some very simple things. And so in a sense, in what I have experienced these last couple years is a more extreme resistance within myself against the things that I know I should or would or want to be doing. And part of my contemplation practice is to really value and look at what is. In my own personal experience, that is my divine gift, the experience of the moment and of the now. And that it is showing me something. from a divine place. And so even when resistance is up, I don't know if people know about the 3 gunas, and there's this idea of the energies, and there's Rajas, which is kind of like overdoing and like following everything and taking your LOV and your meta power and exercises and going to core power and doing all that things and doing it right and going to bed at 7 o'clock and okay, that's great. Doesn't always happen. And then there's tamas, which is basically like inertia. And sattva is this idea of the middle. And it's a first step towards the spiritual middle, but there's more. And so this idea of we're vacillating, right, between these things. And so when tamas shows up, and I think that's been happening for a lot of us, this inertia or resistance, to include it. It's like invite it into the room. That's the valve. And ask, what is this showing me? Is there a purpose to this? And in my own practice, my teacher, they have been really showing me to kind of move into a different space from maybe the Rajas, the rigid morning spiritual practice. For the first 12 years of my work in this way, I was like a really good student. I've always been a pretty good student. And I was like always there, loving it, just like, yeah. Oh, like contemplating, connecting, spiritual practice every morning, not missing it. I can go for more than an hour and a half. Great, right? And then that changed. And then it was like, well, your spiritual lesson is to really face not just your resistance, but the layers and levels and different bodies that shows up in our mind ego complex. And so then you start to see the beauty in that, and how you can bring in your spiritual practice in your every waking moment, rather than sitting and having it be so separate. And so I've perceived that this has been a very valuable movement in the progression of my contemplation and my perception about where I place my attention and what body within me is moving and speaking at the time, and who is acting, what is the acting force from within me with my attention and my focus. And so it's been very specific and necessary. So I guess that's what I wanted to share with everyone, is that the way you're being shown can show up in different ways if you are working with it and contemplating, and it doesn't always look like what we think we want it to look like. And it doesn't always show up kind of as in, I don't know what, doing the right things. And I personally, I was having a lot of recent, tamas, and just not having a lot of energy and not waking up, and all of this kind of from the last 3 years. And what has worked for me was really looking at what is and working with it, and changing everything, and just doing a change up. And but I don't mean this. I also want to say, don't take this valve as just like, yeah, great, I don't have to do anything, don't take care of myself. That's not it. I'm saying coupled with deep contemplation. So I hope that wasn't too long.
Well, I'm excited to wrap this up. And I think what I have to share really kind of encompasses everything that everybody's had to share. And I'd love if you want to just put some notes or in the chat about anything that really is helping your self connect with spirit. So I recently shared, my own personal crisis over the last couple of years of divorce and big life changes. And I always believe that, the micro is such a representation of the macro, right? Like, I know that we have all suffered in our own ways and had our own crises. And yet oftentimes a crisis is a crossroad that can actually be a threshold for something much bigger. And yet these times can bring on massive anxiety, depression, uncertainty, because as human beings, we like certainty, right? We like to feel safe. And as our reality begins to deconstruct, it's nerve-wracking. But in this deconstruction, what can begin to happen is something new can emerge. A new seed can begin to blossom, right? And a seed, one seed can create a forest. So it's in this uncertainty that creates great anxiety. What I have found in my journey of life, of going through Lyme disease, of having my body at times be very ill, from having my mind be very ill, that by tapping into source, I'm going to call it our soul, that is our mothership, right? And our mothership is the truth, and it is the energy that lives within all of us, whether you are religious or not religious or whatever your beliefs are. There is an energy that is contained, that we always are. And so what I want to just share in hopes that it will just support all of you if you're struggling right now is, how do we nurture our soul? And this is what I would love for you to share. And I made a list because, you know, I'm not going to tell you anything none of you know, but it's just a reminder. And the reminder is, when I'm struggling, if I'm feeling depressed, I've actually really come to learn that I find that anxiety and depression is a huge calling. The more I step into my truth, the more my anxiety subsides. The more I step outside of my truth, the louder my anxiety gets. It has a purpose. It has something that's trying to tell us. And yet it can have such a grip on our brains and make us feel so crazy that we don't know what's going on. And that's why I started this call with the act of simply breathing, because as we breathe, it drops us into our truth. And sometimes we get so, our nervous systems, as Ariana said, our nervous systems get so fried and so anxious. And at night, all you want to do is go to sleep, but you have so much cortisol pumping through your body that you can't sleep. I used to wake up with my mind just racing. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? It was just insanity, right? So these are the times that we need to sort of go, okay, what is my reset? Where do I go to reconnect, to remind myself to commit to reconnect with my soul so I can begin to center and ground and do things differently. So I know we're just about, well, we're kind of over time here. So very quickly, I'm going to go through my list. How does Aisha Harley nurture her soul? In hopes that, again, this will be an inspiration. Daily meditation, huge. There are so many apps, 10 minutes a day. Wake up, do your meditation. It will change your life, truly. It's the one thing that will change your life. It's so, even if you've never meditated, there's apps, it will walk you through it. Keep it simple, you know, get with a friend that knows how to meditate, learn how to meditate. It truly is. We brush our teeth every day, right? We drink water every day. We do these things every day. And oftentimes we forget to nurture our spirit and our hearts. Breathing, consciously breathing, learning breathing exercises, learning how to slow your breath rate down will change your mind, it will change your body, it will change your health. I am a big, huge fan of chanting. Chanting gives your mind something to do, because our mind is like a monkey. It goes, you know, it's always jumping around. So give it something to focus on that is, you know, that is constructive, that is healing, that is in alignment. And if you don't resonate with chanting, then maybe it's reading scripture or whatever you can fill your mind with to give it something to focus on, which isn't the insanity of, you know, all of this craziness. Free flow daily writing, like letting your subconscious drain, just putting that pen down on paper and letting it go and just letting it speak whatever it needs to speak. Living in the present moment. We're all so worried about the past and where we're going, right? We set these goals, we're in a hurry, we're in a rush. You know what? You're going to get there and you're not even going to know you arrived, because you're not in the present. You're always in the future or in the past. So making it a practice. Like, are you on this call right now? Or are you on this call doing 20 other things? No judgment. I've done it both ways, right? But how many of us are living where we're not really present ever? Are you sitting with your friend being present to them? Or are you thinking about what you have to cook for dinner or what you have to do later on? Like, how often on the day-to-day are you truly present? This is something that I learned from a coach, Tiffany Peterson, years ago. Create a joy list. Write down 10 things that you love to do that cost money and 10 things that cost no money. And when you're having a struggling day, look at your joy list and go, what can I do to bring joy into my life? What can I do to raise my energy by doing something that makes me happy? We all need more joy, and cultivating joy in your life, again, will be life-changing. And then also taking care of the body, taking care of the mind. It's all connected. If your digestion is out of whack, it's going to impact your brain and your brain function. It's all important. Like, we say this over and over and over, take your supplements. Oh my gosh, the MetaPower. The MetaPower has helped my nervous system heal to such a degree that it helped me extract myself out of a very toxic and addictive relationship that I had a lot of shame around, and was very hard for me. But it gave me the strength and the fortitude to actually start taking care of myself. And the essential oils, we have these incredible tools. Use them. Are you using them? Sometimes we have to, Ariana, Josie, and I, we have to remind one another, are you taking your adaptive? Are you taking your LOV? Like, we all need reminders of that. So it is those little things that we do every single day that have a major impact on our lives. Our lives are they represent our daily decisions. So I invite you to choose yourself first, take care of yourself, nurture yourself on the mind, body, spirit level. Look at yourself and go, okay, where am I out of balance? And what can I bring in on the daily that's going to help support, me being the best version of myself? Because ultimately, don't we all want a healthier body, more energy, more happiness, and to be more alive, and to be able to step into the ease, into the flow of life? So, Arin, I'm going to pass the call on over to you.
Thanks, Aisha. Thank you, everyone that shared in the chat. It's so good to just connect with each other and hear what we're doing, what's helping. I love all the different perspectives. This is the part of the call where we transition into talking about sharing our love for essential oils and the doTERRA products. Our love for the philanthropic work that doTERRA does, so that we can help more people and earn an income. So what I would like us to all just kind of settle into today is, this space is so good. Just think about what the oils have done for you over these last few years, what the community has meant to you over these last few years, and what it's brought to your life. I love to get present with this. For me personally, this community and doTERRA and these oils, I do feel like it saved my life. I feel like the trajectory that I was headed on as a woman in my early 30s was one that could possibly end in death or grave illness. So when I touch into that, like, it's easy to forget sometimes. It's easy sometimes to just go with the motions, like, oh yeah, I teach people about essential oils, or oh yeah, I'm a doTERRA wellness advocate, and to brush over or forget the true power in all of that. So this is kind of what we might refer to as touching into your story. Like, what is your real story with doTERRA? And I know many of you, and I know your stories, and I know how extremely profound and powerful they are. And I know some of you are new to the community, and you might be in the middle of your story. You might still be having those ahas. But put a few things in the chat about something that the oils or the doTERRA products or the community or the income has meant to you over the last 3 years, specifically as we've been navigating through these difficult times. And as you're putting that in the chat, what I want to then bring our attention to is, have you been keeping it to yourself? How many people have you told your story to this last week? And I mean really told your story to. So that's the difference, right? Oh, I teach people about essential oils. That's one version of the story. But the other version of the story is, at least for me, before essential oils, I was dealing with crippling anxiety and depression and unexplainable health issues. And then I brought essential oils into my life and I found a path of healing. Or maybe for someone, it's more of a financial aspect. Remember when I met Aisha, she was a photographer and her body hurt and she was really ill. We didn't know at that time, right, that it was Lyme disease. And so I know what the financial career aspect has done. So how many people have you shared your real story with this week? Now, this inquiry isn't meant to be judgmental or abrasive. What it is meant to do is to show us that if we don't have a system in place, a habit in place, which is what I want to talk about today, it's very easy for our week to go by and we don't share the story, or we don't share an invitation to the oils or an invitation to the community, because life gets busy, right? And we can forget. And it can also be hard to go there with every single person we meet. So I want to dig into one of our success habits that we talk about as a means for you to be sure that you're sharing this story and you're sharing this invitation with a few people every week. And that habit is having a class. And this is also a hard habit to get back to, right? After the pandemic, I'm having a hard time getting back to this habit. I'm having a hard time getting back to it because it seems like people get sick more often now. And I still don't know how to navigate the cancellations or what I would do if we got sick. It's a hard habit to get back to because through this pandemic, I've discovered that, I'm someone who is highly sensitive and extra burnt out when I'm around people. So it's kind of hard for me to get back to that aspect. But what I want to bring to this conversation is a story about how I found success in this business. And one of the reasons that I found success in this business is for many, many, many years, I had some kind of gathering every week around the oils. And that also brings permission to activate your creativity, because this class that we talk about doesn't have to be one type of class. I want to give you some examples and maybe open it up to anyone else who has some ideas about this, of types of classes that I've had over the years to keep that momentum going and keep that sharing going and the story going, that also are really fun and add a lot to my community. But the thing that I really want us to remember is there's this saying, I don't know if it was Tiffany Peterson who used to say it or if it's another coach, but it's that success is scheduled. So if we really want something to happen, we have to put it on our calendar. In my household, we got 2 kids. My husband is now started a new career as a realtor, and then I've got my doTERRA business. So if something isn't in our calendar, it will not happen. Does anybody else experience that? Right? If I don't put it in my calendar, it doesn't happen. Even lunch. Sometimes, like, if I didn't make time for lunch, I'll get into this situation where I'm in a meeting and my blood sugar's crashing and I'm really hungry. So the same thing has to happen for sharing doTERRA and our doTERRA business. And why I want to focus in on the class is, if you have a class or an event on your calendar every week, then guess what you'll naturally do? You'll naturally invite people. So that's another one of your daily habits that just gets taken care of. If you have a class on your books, you'll naturally be out networking because you're going to want to meet new people to invite to your class. So I always felt, as I was building my doTERRA business, that my class was kind of my bottom line. It was my one thing that if it was on my calendar, then everything else I did in my doTERRA business would like lead to that class. And sometimes it didn't have to be a class that I had at my house. It could be a class that someone else is hosting. So for this example, I have a mom friend. She's a mom of one of the kids at my daughter's school. She doesn't have doTERRA yet because she feels like she can't afford it, right? We know that means that she hasn't really made the mental connection. So I said to her, well, why don't you gather a group of people to come to your house and learn about essential oils? And if you have 4 people there who don't have doTERRA accounts yet, I'm going to give you a little keychain with a collection of oils, and I can show you how to make some commission so you can afford your oils. So that's a way to have a class. Another way to have a class is to do something fun, like a spa night. Or I really want to do a healthy happy hour where I serve mocktails and I teach people about meta power, and I let people weigh themselves on my smart scale. You can do a DIY event. We always tell this story of Aisha's transitional class, the one that like really made her go for it with the business. And you know what we did? We made chapstick and we chanted because, you know, we're all like Aisha and I are yogis. And so we made chapstick and chanted, and she had like 30 people at this class. And that was the one where she really realized this was it for doTERRA. So what are ways that you could have a non-negotiable event class on your calendar that would be fun and fill your soul, and you would be excited to invite people to it? I'm just going to check in the chat if Aisha, Ariana, or Josie want to add anything to this. Please do.
Oh, you know, I want to add to this conversation. So what Arin is saying is golden. Like, I want you guys to really realize that she is giving you one of the key secrets to your success. Consistency is key. The way that I built my business is I had a class every week, and I taught. Yeah, Arin and I first started with chapstick classes, and you know, Arin was this mystical, amazing plant lady that knew everything about the oils. Well, guess what? I knew nothing about the oils. I had just started using them, and I was like, I can't teach people about oils. I know nothing about oils. Does anybody feel that way? Like you're not qualified to teach? Well, I really want to dismantle that, because there's tear sheets, there's tools. I got one tear sheet. I memorized the heck out of that tear sheet. I did it wrong. Maybe it wasn't wrong, but I had classes that were too long. I overshared. I had classes where no one came. I had classes where one person bought one oil. I did all of that, but I was really consistent and I kept showing up. And that consistency is key, because I never kept my eye off where I was going. I was holding that vision of where I wanted to go. And so I didn't care if there was one person there or 2 people there. In fact, if it was just me teaching, 3 to 5 people was really enough. I didn't need more than that many people there, but it was that consistency. And it was that consistency over a period of time. I am going into my 13th year of doTERRA. So if you're brand new, please don't compare, as it was said, your beginning with Arin or Ariana or Dr. Josie or my like middle, like none of us are even at our end because we're still in it. But don't compare yourself to us. Don't look at us and go, oh, well, they got in early and it's too late, or everybody already has all the oils. That is not true at all. The reason why the leaders that are here on this call are here is because we were consistent, and because we continue to take that daily action, and we continue to share, and we continue to hold that space, and we fall down over and over and over. I've been pretty much, like on the side of the road for the last 2 years. And I'm just getting up and dusting myself off. And I'm like, okay, it's time to keep moving forward. Like I never stop sharing, right? I never stop sharing. I mean, I say this a lot, but I think it's a really good reminder. Think about your life before the essential oils. Think about your life if whoever shared with you was too afraid to share, or too shy, or didn't want you to think they were weird because they were trying to sell you something. Just think about how your life would be if you did not share your essential oils. You've heard Arin's story, you've heard my story, you've heard Ariana's story. Like you've heard we were all not well. Mentally, physically, spiritually, we were suffering. And a huge major part of our healing journey, of our success, of what we have created, has come from one, using the products and looking at our own self-care and healing ourselves, and then also sharing with others how to do that. If you're being called, you're all being called, you're all here. It's not a mistake that you're here. It's not a mistake that you're part of this community. You have all been called. So are you listening to that calling? And people need us. People need these oils. People need this information. People are suffering. I can't even imagine the level of anxiety and depression that I felt if I didn't have these tools. I can't even imagine what my life would be like. I mean, can you imagine what your life would be like if you did not have these tools? I mean, seriously, that is really major. So as Arin said, get in the habit of teaching and being consistent and putting it on your calendar every Thursday from 6 to 7:30. I'm going to invite friends over for tea. I'm going to teach them about essential oils. You can give a quick overview about the oils in 15 minutes. Make it an experience. Make sure you let them know how to purchase them. If they don't purchase the first time they come, don't worry about it. Just keep inviting them back. Invite them to bring their friends. Consistency is key. Every time you do something, ask yourself, how did that go? How could I have done it better? What worked? What didn't work? What do I need to work on? Where did I get awkward? How can I constantly improve my game to make this better? So don't underestimate that. So I invite you all to get out your calendar and look at your schedule. Think about where it is you want to go. Like if you were going to drive somewhere, right? Like if we are going to take a trip, say I live in Portland and I'm going to drive to New York, I wouldn't just get in my car and randomly go. I mean, maybe some of you would, but I would get out a map and I would map it out. So if you are working on creating an income, whether you want to pay for your oils, whether you want to earn some additional income, whether you want to replace what you're doing, whatever it is you want to do, it doesn't matter, but create a plan to get there and stay on course. My ex-husband, bless his heart, I came home so many times and I say, oh my gosh, one person came and I sold one bottle of oil and I think I made $2 and that took 3 hours. And he would be like, that's okay. You just keep going, because it's the consistency and it's over time that you're going to build the empire. And now I have a global team. I have a global team because I was consistent in my own hometown, teaching classes weekly and then teaching a monthly event monthly, and for basically 7-8 years until we got shut down from COVID. It was that consistency. So anyway, Josie, Ariana, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll add, excuse me. I also wanted to share that it's, this idea of sharing oils often is like planting seeds. So I just had an experience last week where I had shared an in-tune blend with a longtime friend for her son for focus, and that was years ago. And she contacted me recently, and her child was really struggling. He's 14. And I wasn't able to fix all of her problems. But what was really beautiful was I was able to bring in tools and support and love. And so she invited me over, and I had a little one-to-one class like we're talking about with her, where I just educated her more about the oils over some tea. And then we went up, and there was a group of kids hanging out, and I just introduced the oils to them. And I was really open. They were teenage boys. I'm a little biased. I was like, I don't know if they're going to go for this, but a few of them did. And one of the boys actually started crying. He was dealing with some really intense emotional stuff. I just shared breathe with him because he was having some lung issues. So what my point is that, by putting yourself out there, you might not always get the response immediately that you expect or that you're hoping for. But I can't emphasize enough to just keep putting yourself out there and sharing the plant and the medicine. And, she contacted me and said, hey, do you have a diffuser in some way to like make the space where these kids are breathing? They're sick, they have colds, they have pneumonia, and they're emotionally struggling. And so that was one way that I could bring in a tool to a parent, and it felt really profound. So, again, it's like I wasn't trying to solve all of the problems her child has. I wouldn't be able to do that, but I was able to bring in support. And that's what many people are looking for, right? Whether it's on the physical, the emotional, or the spiritual sides. I find that all of them are intertwined. So that would be also one of my points, is your seeds take root and sprout at different times.
Yeah, go ahead, Josie.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. I wanted to talk about there's some in the chat, right? About Jeannie Kelly said that, she makes roller bottles at her house and everyone loves making them. She gets great feedback. And I love that idea and the DIYs. I mean, that's a super simple one. You really just on anywhere, Amazon, doTERRA sells them, but you can probably get, bulk, getting the roller bottles. And then, especially for people who've been around with us for a while, they usually have large inventories, and it's a wonderful way to share your plant medicine, right? And your inventories is making these blends and the knowledge. And so it's just in people learn from other people in what's going on, like what kind of blend they want. And they're kind of passively learning about the oils without it being a class, and just figuring out what the blends will be. And you can also offer hot essential oil tea or cold essential oil seltzers, another way for them to experience it internally, passively, without teaching about it. And let's face it, we need ways to get together. There, from the pandemic, if you're getting older, it gets harder. It just gets harder to meet people and get out there and connect, and you get lazier. I mean, so just being honest, what a wonderful thing, right? To have a standing, it's not a class. Don't think of it as a class. It's a gathering. We're inviting people over, and you get to do cool, fun stuff with other people, and you're offering this beautiful service. And if they don't show up, or if one person shows up, I mean, you get to make, you're like, oh, I'll tell you guys something juicy. I just made, like, if no one showed up to mine, I just made this, have you all heard of my face caviar blend? Well, that was like, me holding back, because that was like the top shelf of all the oils, and me sort of saying, what would I want of just no holding back. But I was holding back a little bit, because I used oils that were all available to everyone. If I was really gonna no hold bar make a face caviar, I'd use all these LTO, limited time oils, right? So that's what I did. I got out this whole line of all these, because I would say 80% of the limited oils that are like all of us who are the VIP people who always buy them and get them, they're good for the face. They're great for the face. They're great for a face combo. So that's what I did. And I had about 10 oils and I did all of them and I made a new face caviar. And let me tell you, that thing is juicy. I know everyone's going to want the recipe. It's kind of cray cray, but like that's what you can do. No one shows up. You make a great special blend for yourself that it took me like 3 months to find the time and the energy to get myself to make that blend, even though I wanted it really badly. So you know what I mean? Like that's a great opportunity to treat yourself then.
That's great, Josie. Yes,
Yeah.
this is where we're going to wrap it up. This exactly what Josie's talking about, what we're inviting you to do. And please take out your calendar right now. Take out your calendar right now and pick a weekly day and time. I did Wednesday nights when I first started. And I also did Sunday mornings. I loved both of those times. Wednesday nights was like hump day, right? People need a little stress relief. You're giving them something to do. So I always did Wednesday nights, and my Wednesday night event was exactly what Aisha was recommending. I invited people over. I made tea. I made essential oil chocolates. We would chat a little bit about essential oils. And mostly it kind of became like a women's circle. And I did it for a few years until it got too big for my living room. It was so lovely. It was, people loved it. And everybody who came eventually signed up with a doTERRA account and eventually built a doTERRA business. But I didn't put pressure on anybody. If you could come, you could not come, was whatever. I would send out an email every week to my email list that I had started growing through networking and invite people over. And then my Sunday event was something a little different. I called it Healing Times. And it was kind of like a networking event. What I would do is I would invite a practitioner, like a yoga teacher, Reiki master. I had all kinds of interesting people, and they would do a little presentation about what they did. And then I'd have oils, and we would have a time to hang out. So I just give you those two examples. You can do whatever you want. I've got tea recipes for you in our protocol drive. I put it in the chat, but I want you to pick a time right now. And if you're looking at your calendar and you're going, I don't have a time, I can't commit to a weekly event, that's okay. But I would ask you to make sure that that's in line with your goals with doTERRA. If your goals with doTERRA are just to casually share and you don't really care if you make any money or not, if you get a commission check, it's fun, then great, that's understandable. You don't have a lot of time to commit to doTERRA. But if you have the goal of making $500 a month or more in doTERRA, and you're looking at your calendar and you're feeling like there isn't time for doTERRA, then my invitation to you this week is to find some time, to carve out some time, because this is what it will take for you to earn $500 a month or more with doTERRA, is to give doTERRA at least 2 hours of your time every week. And it is really easy when you make it the same day of the week, the same time, because then your community starts to know about it. So I'll leave you with one little story about how this works. I was living in Portland, Oregon, and I don't know if they do this anymore, but remember the Alberta Street Fair? It was so fun. And I had a booth. Contessa was there with me. And we just had some little DIY things. We had some oils, and a girl was brought up to our booth. She bought some toothpaste I had made, and she signed up for my email list. And then I didn't see her again for months. Finally, one night, she showed up at my Wednesday night class. Her name is Bianca Jade. You might know her. She has gone on to not only become a gold in doTERRA, but she has multiple, like 6 diamonds underneath her in doTERRA. Why I tell you the story is Bianca Jade was on my email list. And for months, she would get an email Monday afternoon that would say, you're invited to my house on Wednesday night for essential oils, chocolate, and tea. And for months she didn't come. Finally, one day she came, and not only was she able to bring oils into her life and uplift her health, but she was able to create a business, and now she has residual income. She's also recently become a mom, and she was able to just be home with her mom because of her residual income. So I tell you that story because, first of all, it was just tea and oils and chocolate. It was nothing special, but it was consistent, and I invited every week, and I built a list. So I was out networking, I built a list, I had a regular event, and it was in Bianca's back of mind until she finally went, you know what, I'm going to go to that event. And now, 10 years later, the ripple effect was created. So I hope this inspires you to get off this call and schedule your weekly event. I want to hear about it. Send me a message, send us a message, put it in the Facebook group. And if it has uncovered the fact that your schedule is not open to a weekly event, then you get to go and adjust your schedule so that you can make room for your dreams and your goals. We love you all. What a great call. Next week is our last call of January. Am I right? No, we have 2 more. Oh, January is long. We have 2 more next week. Next week is the last one, right? And we're doing resetting your home. So we're going to probably talk about green cleaning. I just interviewed a feng shui expert on my podcast. And she talks about oils and feng shui. So maybe we'll bring some of that into the call. And just reminder that our Zoom link has changed. We're not going to be streaming live on Facebook anymore, but I kind of really like this where we get to see everybody. Josie, did you have something to add? Okay. Okay. Have a great day. Happy Monday, everybody.